Hi, in this quick tutorial, I'm going to show you how to apply texture in Krita and in Photoshop. So let's start with Krita. This is a blank A5 canvas, which is set to wide orientation. And what I'll do is just on this new layer, I'm just take my paintbrush tool and let me just choose a chalky brush, something dry, and I'll make the brush a bit bigger. I'll choose the color green and I'll just create a shape. There you go, just a really basic shape. Nothing fancy about that. All right, now what I want to do is bring in some texture. Now for that, I'm going to go to the Moodle page for week 5. And I've got two textures here. I've got a watercolor texture that I've scanned in, and I've got a photo of some rust. So it doesn't really matter what image it is, as long as you know how to copy and paste. So we're just going to copy it from here and go back to Krita. And all we have to do here is paste it. Now you'll see when you paste something in Krita, it lands into the layer palette as a new layer. So there it is. It's sitting directly above the green splotch that I did earlier. Now in Krita, to apply the texture to the shape underneath, you do two things. You select both layers, so the texture on top and the shape at the bottom. You go to the layer menu and you group them together. It's called a quick group. Now you can see they have been placed into a folder. Okay, that's what grouping does. It puts all your layers into a folder. Now watch this. If I select the texture layer from within that group, go over here, I'll just zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. Right, so over here, not the alpha lock, but the one next to it. This little baby here will actually, what's it called? Now let's just see what the name of that is. Let me just zoom back out a little bit. So hover over the top con. It's called an inherit alpha lock. It's quite different. Now if I activate that, watch what happens. The pattern or the watercolor texture is automatically placed inside the green shape underneath. Now if I click on the move tool, I can actually move the texture within the shape. It's fantastic, look at that. And if I don't like it anymore, I can just click on the little A icon and it pops back out. So that's a really nice feature. While it's inside the green shape, I can also bring down the opacity. Now I can change the effects of the texture over the green color paint. So that's how you apply texture in Krita. That's one way. There's a few other ways, but that's probably the easiest way. Now the key there, of course, is to remember that you have to group the layers for this to work. And then you activate this little icon here, and Bob's your uncle. Now to do the same thing in Photoshop, let's go to Photoshop now. I'll just zoom back out a little bit. So in Photoshop, it's a little bit different. What we do is we create a new layer. And then on that new layer, you take your paintbrush, you choose a dry brush. So this is from the dry media brushes. And then you choose your color. Now again, just to make it consistent, I'll choose a bright green. And with my brush, if I make that a little bit bigger, let's just press on the square bracket key on my keyboard to make it nice and big. And I'm just going to paint a little blotch. All right, so here it is in Photoshop as a new layer. Now remember, I copied the texture before, so it should still be on my clipboard. So if I go paste, plonk, there it goes. In the same way, it's above the layer that has the green splotch. Now if I go over to this area here, now I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. Not the thumbnail area, but over here. If I right click there, this pop-up menu comes up. And if I scroll, you'll see something called Create Clipping Mask. Okay, now if I choose Create Clipping Mask, bang, it does the same thing as Krita. You'll notice as well, there's a little arrow indicating that this texture is now linked or related to this green splotch. So once again, if I click on the Move tool, I can move the texture from within the shape. Great. I can also play around with opacity in the same way I did in Krita. If I don't like the effect anymore and I want to go back to normal, I can just right click that layer again and release the clipping mask. And out it comes. Now, a shortcut, if you're interested in shortcuts in Photoshop, you don't have to right click over here. You just hold the Option key, and as soon as you hold the Option key, see how my cursor turns into that downward arrow? Now, that only works if I move my mouse between layer 1 and layer 2. Then you get the downward arrow, and if I click while it's a downward arrow, bang, I've got a clipping mask. If I click again, it's released. So that's a quick shortcut way of doing it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Thank you very much.